Morning, BookTube. Bill Ruttenberg here with the Ruttenberg Library. I wanted to come to you this morning with a book chat. I've been reading lots of books this month, over the last couple months, really, and I haven't done very many book chats. I had all intentions of doing them, and I just haven't got around to them. So I decided this morning that would be the video that I put up, is a book chat, and it goes along with our theme for the month of March, the middle grade March, where we read middle grade books. This is a book that my fellow teachers in the English department require for our 8th grade class, and it's The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. And this is just an excellent book. Like I said, it's a middle grade book, but it also could be considered a YA book depending on how you're looking at it. It's relatively small. It's 156 pages long, and it is, this particular copy that I have is from Dell Publishing, and it is a 1967 copyright on it. I don't know that this particular copy is this is a 1989 copy, but the story's from 1967. But anyway, this is your classic coming of age story. And I will tell you right off the get-go, this for me was a 5-star read, and I rate it that way for a couple of different reasons. Number one, I just thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought that Hinton did an excellent job of playing with several different themes in her writing a book that really attracts young readers and gets them into the story. They enjoy it. And I have proof of this just by my classroom experience, watching these kids go through English every year. 2 sections of English cover this with their 8th grade class, and they always love this book. There's always the the kickback because it's a required reading, but then once they get a couple chapters in, the kids are hooked. And I would even go a step further for my proving that it's a popular book that the kids absolutely love, because the kids always end up reading 2 or 3 more Hinton books on top of this one, and they go above and beyond. It used to be, I don't know if they still require it, but they would start with The Outsiders, and then the kids had to pick another title. They got free choice of whatever Hinton book they wanted to read. I don't know if they still do it that way, but I do know that over the years they've read this, they've read the extra required one that they got to pick, and typically they'd read 1 or 2 more past that on their own just because they love her writing. And so anyway, let me tell you a little bit about this story. So this story takes place, it's the main character, his name is Ponyboy, and that's not a nickname. That's actually his true name, Ponyboy Curtis. And he comes from a family that is, both of his parents are dead. He lives with his 20-year-old brother, and then he has another brother who is, I believe, he's either 16 or 18. I can't remember. He's in between the ages. And Ponyboy's young. I believe he was 14. And if he's not 14, he's pretty close to that. He was younger. And all 3 of the characters in the Curtis family, they all have unique individual. That they're very individual to each other. The oldest brother, Derry, he's a very smart individual, and he had a lot going for him. He was really good in sports, and he was probably going to go on to college and make something of himself. But unfortunately, like we said, the parents had died, and he took over the father role and has been taking care of his 2 older brothers. And the middle brother, his name is Soda, real name Soda Curtis, and Soda is very hands-on. He's very good with working with mechanics. He works in a garage on cars, and he has dropped out of school. He was not very good at the classroom work. And then there's Ponyboy himself, and Ponyboy is extremely smart. He is throughout the book, they show him to be a dreamer. He's very creative. He's a very good writer, and he reads a lot. But all 3 of these boys, they are in the what we would call the greaser category. They are low income, they are poor, and they hang out with a bunch of kids who are just like them. They're hoodlums. They get in trouble a lot. but they're a tight-knit group. And of course, on the other side of this story, we have the rich kids that are in town, the socials, or the socks as they call them in this book. And so we got the socks versus the greasers. And so immediately in the storyline, if you're looking at like themes that we see a divided community, this rich versus poor, and the haves versus the have-nots. That's a really big theme throughout the whole book, in how that really affects what you're going to be when you grow up, and your outlook on life and all of that kind of stuff. So anyway, in the story, like I said, it takes place from Ponyboy's point of view. So he's narrating this whole thing as we go through. And they hang out with a bunch of 16 to 18-year-olds for the most part. And like I said, the individual characters, they all have their unique flaws within the greaser group. But the two main characters that we see, aside from Ponyboy, is his friend Johnny. And Johnny is young like him. They are both pretty innocent characters, but Johnny, unfortunately, in the story, has come to a situation where he got jumped by a carload of the socks, and they beat him up really bad, and it really mentally messed with him. And so we see that, and that's a flashback, so we don't even get really the whole story there. We get bits and pieces throughout the book, but that's a flashback, and it kind of sets up his character as he's innocent, but yet his age of innocence has been ruined by this event, and it has really caused a character flaw in him as he moves forward. And so throughout the story, we see that these two guys are buddy-buddy, and they are seeing some of these differences in the community, this divided community, where they end up going to the movie theater and or out to, I guess it wasn't a movie theater, maybe it was the drive-in, and maybe it was a movie theater. I don't know. I can't remember. Anyway, they were going to the movies one way or another. And when they were at the movies, they see these two girls who are from the Sox. And one of them, Cherry, she is, and both of them are very pretty girls, very kind girls. They're socks, but they're not socks. And so we start to see this idea of empathizing with the other side. And as Ponyboy, who's got kind of a sweet nature to him, and Cherry sees this, sees right through he wants to look tough, but she sees right through it, and she sees this soft heart of his, and she gets along with him. But both of them know that they can't see each other in public. They can't be seen, Ponyboy can't be seen with Cherry in front of the other greasers, or in front of the socks for that matter, and Cherry's the same way, because it's just going to cause strife between the two groups. And so this story carries on where Ponyboy and Johnny are walking through the park one night, and a carload of socks who were friends with Cherry, they jumped them one night. And so we see this murder happen, an accidental murder, where Ponyboy, he's being held underwater by a bigger kid, being held underwater, and Johnny's afraid he's going to get drowned, and he ends up pulling a switchblade and stabbing the kid and killing him. And they end up running away because they're scared of what's going to happen to them. And so throughout the story, we see this buildup in the community, what's going to happen. They're off hiding, and so they end up coming back to town. Johnny comes to this conclusion: I'm just going to go admit to it and tell them what happened, and hope for the best. And so we see in this youth this idea of hope that has not been quite crushed yet. Whereas with the older greasers, hope has been smashed, and they don't expect the best. They think the cops are the bad guys, and we see that type of thing, and rightfully so, because they've been judged all these years. Automatically, they come into the building, they walk in the door, and they're automatically being judged as hoodlums, whether the people know them or not. Now, granted, they've earned some of that reputation, but regretfully, sometimes they aren't meaning to cause trouble, and they get it because of their reputations. And so throughout the story, we see this buildup between the Sox and the greasers, and the Sox want to get back at the greasers for that murder. And so we see this big rumble that's going to happen. And I don't want to ruin the whole story, but it's kind of this build up and climax to this one event, and then there's going to be also something else that is bad that happens that is the build up of the whole story. And like I said, I don't want to ruin the whole thing, but just talking about some of the themes that run through this book. Like I said, divided communities. We see the socks versus the greasers, the rich versus the poor, where both sides look at each other as the enemy. They're seeing their differences instead of looking at their similarities, which is sad because as the story goes, we start to find characters in the book that start to look across the social lines and they start recognizing, hey, he's just like me. He's just unfortunate and poor, or he's like me, but he's got money. It's just different circumstances. So I always going into my classroom, I always look at all of my kids with a clean slate. I clean the slate with them because, everybody comes from a different environment. They have different circumstances. And I want all my kids in my classroom to have a chance to all be equal. And so I try really hard for that, and I try to take into consideration that background that they have, the environment that they are from, and so I see that in this book. I really enjoy that, and I think sometimes my kids in the classroom, when they're reading it, they recognize that too. They're kind of hardened to an extent, and then when they read this, their eyes are opened to what I'm trying to do and what the other teachers are trying to do to give them an equal chance. And so I think that's a big thing. That's one reason I really liked this book, or another reason I liked it. We also see this divided communities just within the Curtis family itself. We've got the older brother, Derry, who he had all the possible things going for him where he would have been able to make something of himself. And now he is stuck in this parent role that he wants to do it, but he doesn't want to do it. He wants to have his chance. And he recognizes his chance is gone because he is stuck doing this. And so he is in parent mode trying to help Ponyboy, who has got the skills. He just needs the environment to get him to college and get him on into the workforce. And the middle brother also sees this. Soda, he sees this as well. And he has dropped out of school because he knows school's not for him. He enjoys working on cars and stuff. And so he's making money for the family, this family unit. But at the same time, Ponyboy feels restricted. He feels like they're always out to get him. And it's not that they're out to get him, they're out to help him. And so we see that divide right there in that family structure. Let's see, we see empathy throughout the book. And we see this when, Ponyboy and Johnny, when they meet the girls at the movies, they see that empathy across there where they start, you're just like me, but you've got different circumstances, and flip, reverse the roles, flip that around. The girls are seeing that in the boys, that they're not bad guys. They're not greasers. They are, but they're not. There's a sweet side to them. Not all greasers are punks and hoodlums. And so we see that in this book. We also see empathy with Ponyboy and another main character, Dally. Now, Dally is he's an older kid. He's in his early 20s, and he has been hardened to life. He has been in jail. He knows what the real world is like. But Dally, some of that he's brought on himself. And Ponyboy sees that. He sees that because Dally really, really cares for Johnny. He takes care of Johnny because Johnny's childhood background is he's got two parents that don't pay much attention to him. They blame him for a lot of stuff. And, he gets knocked around quite a bit by his dad, and his mom is verbally abusive. And so there's a bad situation there. And so Johnny, in his quest for love, if you want to say that, has idolized Dally, and Dally recognized that, and he takes care of Johnny. Dally will smack around anybody, but he never will touch Johnny. And so, there's some pretty cool dynamics within this group of friends here. And so Ponyboy, towards the end of the book, he's going to recognize that in Dally, that Dally cared. It was just in his own way. And so we see that empathy. This innocence, this idea of innocence. We see that throughout the book with the two, with Johnny and Ponyboy, where they are young. They have not been totally exposed to all the evils of the world, but we also see that that innocence is under attack because of the stuff going on between the socks and the greasers. And we see that with, as that murder happens, we obviously see innocence go away, and the real world starts to become a little bit more clear to these boys. But towards the end of the book, Hinton does a great job of giving hope to that idea of innocence, and you'll see that if you read the book. Let's see, this idea of self-sacrifice and honor. There's honor among thieves. You've heard that before. Well, the greasers, they are all true to each other. So they get mad from time to time at each other for various things. But when the going gets tough, they've got each other's backs at all times throughout the book. And it's a neat loyalty that we see there. And just the honor of being in this group. You don't want to do anything to shame yourself out of this group. Sorry, I'm looking down at my paper. I got a couple of notes that I wrote down. In one case they talk about in the book where one of the characters, he is not guilty, is not at fault for a crime. One of his buddies did it, but he never opens his mouth, and he takes the rap and goes to jail for it. And so, there's an honor there in being within the group, and that self-sacrifice. I will sacrifice myself for the group. And it's pretty cool that you see that. And then this idea, this last theme, this idea of identity, figuring out who you are as an individual. And, as we've said, if you're a sock, you don't hang out with the greasers. If you're a greaser, you don't hang out with the sock. And just this identity of, if I'm a greaser, I've got my long hair, I've got my t-shirt and jeans, and that's how I dress. That's how I wear my hair. I'm supposed to be a hoodlum, so I'm gonna be a hoodlum. I'm not worried about getting in trouble. I'm willing to steal and do all this kind of stuff because I am a greaser. And there's some key moments in the book where Ponyboy and some of the other characters, they come to that realization that just because I'm a greaser doesn't mean I have to be a greaser. I am my own person. I don't have to do those things. And so, some of those key moments in the book, we see it right off the get-go when Ponyboy, who never talks about, on page 30 in my copy of the book, he's talking with Cherry. They went to go get some drinks and popcorn at the concession stand, and Cherry's asking, "What's wrong with Johnny? Why is he so so skittish, so quiet, and all that?" And Ponyboy never ever talks about it. None of them talk about it. They never talk about the beatdown that Johnny got, but he feels safe with Cherry. And he opens up to her, which is abnormal. That's a key moment in the book. It's one of those moments where he starts to see the empathy across the social lines. He starts to see that you and I are quite a bit alike. And there's this moment as you move through the book where they're getting ready for that big rumble, the big fight between the two groups. And Randy, who is a sock, pulls, and he was best friends with the kid that got killed, pulls up to the greasers where they were. I don't remember where they were at, but they were hanging out, and he pulls up and he says, "Can I talk to you, Ponyboy?" Ponyboy comes over, and he's basically saying, that was my best friend that got killed. And I know he was bad when he got drunk. He had a bad attitude, but there's also another side to him where he wasn't a bad guy. He was my friend. He was kind. He had those moments. He goes, and I'm looking at all of this death, and it's not worth it. Why are we going to fight this out and possibly have somebody die? Haven't we had enough people die? And Randy tells Ponyboy, he goes, "I'm not going to the fight." And that right there is unheard of, because you don't let your group down. Like I said, you've got this, the communities where it's honor. If there's a big rumble, you show up. You don't skip the rumble. And they look at it as fun to go beat on the other guys. Well, Randy has recognized all this for what it is, and he tells him, "I'm not showing up." He goes, they're going to give me a lot of heck for it, but I'm not showing up. I'm not going to fight. And so there's this coming, this spot where they come together and they start to have like minds. And from this point on, now you have Ponyboy thinking the whole time, is this the right thing to do? Is this the smart thing? And the moment that I like the best in the book, and I knew it as soon as I read it, I marked, it's the only page I actually marked while I was reading. I knew it was a turning point in the book. You could just feel it as you were reading. So I want to read this. I want to read this part to you. It says, let's see. So they're getting ready. They're getting ready for this rumble. And maybe I should go back a page. So 115, it says, Soda laughed and went right on playing poker with Steve in the living room. And Derry had on a tight black t-shirt that showed every muscle on his chest and even the flat, hard muscles of his stomach. I'd hate to be the sock who takes a crack at him, I thought as I pulled on a clean t-shirt and a fresh pair of jeans. I wished my t-shirt was tighter. I have a pretty good build for my size, but I'd lost weight in the Windrixville and it just didn't fit right. It was a chilly night and the t-shirts aren't the warmest clothes in the world, but nobody ever gets cold in a rumble. And besides, jackets interfere with the swinging ability. So they're all getting ready for this fight, okay? This paragraph right here is the one that stood out to me. Soda and Steve and I had put on more hair oil than necessary, but we wanted to show that we were greasers. Tonight, we could be proud of it. Greasers may not have much, but they have a rep. That and long hair. What kind of a world is it where all I have to be proud of is a reputation for being a hood and greasy hair? I don't want to be a hood. But even if I don't steal things and mug people and get boozed up, I'm marked lousy. Why should I be proud of it? Why should I even pretend to be proud of it? Derry never went in for long hair. His was short and clean all the time. And so he recognizes that, yeah, I'm a greaser, but there's also this side where I can be an individual. And he looks up to his older brother to an extent. He gets in fights with him, argues with him, but he looks up to him. And it's at this point in the book, he's starting to see Derry for what he is, that big brother, that parent stand-in. And he's starting to see that, like, oh, he doesn't have long, greasy hair. He's his own man. And there's also another part in the book where he recognizes in any other world, if they had their parents, Derry probably would have been a sock. And so anyway, I found that to be a powerful paragraph because he starts questioning himself. And from that point on through the rest of the book, as the fight's going on, after the fight, he's starting to wonder. He thinks back to what Randy said. Is this all worth it? Is death worth it? Can we not be our own individual, or do we have to go with the crowd? Are we lemmings, or are we our own individuals? And I just found that to be a powerful point in the book. But anyway, the rumble does happen. He shows up to the rumble, and then that leads to the end of the story, which I'm not going to tell you because I don't want to spoil it. But BookTube, this is an awesome book. I highly recommend it if you've never read it. I know lots of you have, but if you haven't, pick it up. It's a short read. You can read it in an afternoon. S.E. Hinton is awesome. Yeah, I just highly recommend it. I give it a 5-star, and I base it on not only my opinions, but all my kids' opinions that I see at school. They all love it. And you can read it from a kid's point of view, and you can also look back as an adult and read it. So it's got, many different ways you can attack this book. So I thank you for listening. I thank you for all the new subscribers out there. I hope everyone's doing well. Looks like we got some sunshine out this morning, so I'm going to go enjoy the afternoon, watch my daughter play her very first ever soccer game. That's going to be exciting. Being a sports guy, I like to see my kids jumping into that. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm going to go outside in the sunshine. And so I hope you enjoy some sunshine yourselves. Thank you for watching. I hope this helped you maybe decide to pick this book up for an afternoon read. Until next time, BookTube, happy reading.